Okay, so I think we can get going if nobody else is writing something in the chat. But the way that the evening is going to work is that we've got these three great panelists here, and they're going to talk about different record keeping options that they are familiar with. So each one is going to talk for about 15 to 20 minutes. And then there will be a question period at the end of their session. If the panelist is open to asking questions throughout, that's totally fine as well. And then we'll have another question period at the end. So we're going to go Jeff first. He's going to be talking about Gallagher and how he uses it. Then Holly talking about Shearwell, and then Emily talking about Excel. And it looks like Jeff is ready to rock. So I'll hand the floor over to him.
Oh, there we go. We're unmuted there. Everything looks good in your guys' end, does it?
Yep, looks great.
All right. No, thanks for having me on, guys. I know there's at least two great presenters plus me, but anyway, we'll go through this. We were actually joking about the other day, you're never an expert till you're 500 kilometers from home. So, Isla and Melanie, I know them well. Yeah, it's just Jeff. The rest is, oh, well, I'm not as great as you may have in your head, but no, that's just a joke. I guess what I'd like to get out of this, I'm just going to show you is kind of some of the things I do. I'm going to keep it very basic. I could drill this down pretty far because we are into performance tracking in Genovis. I'll go over a few things kind of at the end, like if you're a commercial producer, because it's all the data that I bring in, I would not expect a commercial producer to, need it, let alone go to the effort of getting it. But yeah, I guess we'll just kind of start off. Bit of my background. I told you I have those few hundred U's. I got a bit of a different background than a lot of guys doing this. I grew up or not dairy farm myself, but I started working on dairy farms. I've owned dairy equipment dealerships. So I work for the provinces of livestock and dairy and livestock, but I'm really more of an engineering, ventilation, and overall business plan kind of guy, and like the numbers, and then a little bit on policy. Don't ask me how to feed a sheep. That's what Katie's for. I know enough to do it myself, but I wouldn't give recommendations. Uh-oh. There we go. All right, here is my big disclaimer. This is not an advertisement for Gallagher. This is just what I use. At the end of the day, I don't give a hoot if it's Shearwell. You manages another Canadian program that you might want to take a look at. Jen and Chris and Jen Vivorts up in Ontario are the English-speaking reps for that. Excel, piece of paper. At the end of the day, as long as you are doing something to, do a bit of record keeping in your farm, just do whatever's in your price range as well as the usability. And what I'll kind of talk about is some of the concepts I use and, focus on the concepts more than what I'm doing, I guess, and kind of how I go through it and then whatever works for you. And here's the three big disclaimers. So all my stuff works on RFID management. So that little yellow tag that you put in the year before shipping, we put those in at birth. So every time we do a management action, we're scanning that at things. So the weight's being tracked, and I've got a full tracking history of everything that happens on that animal. It will not compensate for poor record keeping. And I am guilty of it by times. Not every group goes in perfectly clean, depending what's going on. Some stuff does get a little sloppy. I got some stuff from 6 months ago that I'm just sorting out now. But anyway, if you keep on top of it will, you can go forward. RFID management will not compensate for having poor handling systems. So if you're going to spend the money on this recording technology, or in the management system, the time, for Pete's sakes, go spend a few bucks or at least buy some 2x4s and build something you can actually handle these bloody things in, because, well, anyway, I had a dislocated bicep from not having this stuff in a impromptu barn for isolation. So yeah, make sure you have some handling. And at the end of the day, don't go collecting data that isn't going to be useful. My personal opinion is, maybe collect a little more data you might need if you think you might need it. But, for a commercial producer, as far as I'm concerned, like if you're keeping your own replacements, as long as you know who the mother was, birth weight's nice, but your weaning weight and then what your finishing weight is, those are the main ones I'm concerned with. And then how many they were born as. And then you can start going into the weeds from that wherever you want, but I think those are, really where you should kind of start with. We go into a slew of other stuff, but we'll talk about that briefly here in a minute. Uh-oh, why are we not advancing? So I'll just talk a little bit about the Gallagher stuff, and then I will break out of this presentation a little bit, and I'll show you kind of my own login there. So basically, this whole Gallagher system, it is a cloud-based software that integrates with your hardware, and it costs about $250 a year. As far as I quite like it because in that 250, I get tech support when I need it. Everything's online. I don't have to worry about my computer being stolen or being destroyed. I can track anything I want on life data. So, breed, sex, date of birth. I'm tracking pedigrees. Again, use what you need on it. If you're commercial herd flock, having some degree of pedigree if you keep your own replacements is important. If you're just buying your replacements, there's no real sense in it. Um, and then traits, depending what you want to get into, like we preg scan. So we always have our preg status so we can track people that miss twice are gone. Unless we forget to do it, or it has a note on there that says my wife's pet, then it tends to stay around forever and not produce any lambs. And we do use the genotype quite a bit just so we can track all that. We don't use color. There's a few other things that we'll use and lots of stuff that comes preloaded that is of no use to us. One of the things I actually do use on this is species because, I have sheep. My father-in-law's not as technically savvy, so guess what? There's a lot of 800-pound or 1,200-pound sheep on my thing, so I just mark them as cattle, so I'm not seeing them when I'm trying to do my own stuff. And we do keep track of all our treatments, our vaccinations, what groups everyone's in. And there are some nice features that I quite like because, I've got a short memory. If I go to scan an animal and ship it off, it'll tell me if it's still within a withdrawal period. So I quite like that. Um, some of the other things to know about kind of the data. It's not so I'm not as familiar with Shearwell, but let's take UMass for example. It's a very integrated system, the Canadian stuff that we use. So like if you're a purebred sheep breeder, you can just flip your data right off to CSBA and do your registration automatically or flip your numbers off to Novus. I still have to like manually export that and then manually import it, but that's fine for me because I'm kind of used to that. In truth, I kind of like this program because it's similar to a program I used to use in milking parlors called Dairy Plan, the GIA software. But at the end of the day, it's whatever floats your boat. And when you're looking at your flock of animals, there's first of all, if you want to look at every animal you've ever had at your farm, you can. That's not super practical. So, I always click it on to current, the ones that are still there. But, I can filter based on life data, traits, treatments, certain groups and it implements what's called Boolean logic. So for you, those of you that didn't go through like an engineering degree, it basically means it's and if or logic. So if I'm filtering out, I want animals that are female and Rito and this, and it'll give me all those, and then I can say, and it either has to be from this group or this treatment. So that's kind of the whole thought process to get behind the filtering. It seems a little overwhelming, but once you kind of get into it, it's not that bad. Two big features that are working, and I don't use them as well as I probably should, are groups and mobs. So I'll use the mob. So I've got my mob of lambs from the spring. Those are animals in that mob. And in that, I'll have different groups. So replacement ewe lambs, purebred, terminals, mixed, and then whatever I want to do for groups, and I can manage them accordingly. And then once those animals basically once they're out the door, I've decided my replacement, I'll then move them into another mob and we'll go from there. Um, that's how I do it in my in-barn system because we're indoor intensive. You could also use it, let's say you've got a group of feeder lambs on this farm or a group of feeder lambs on another farm. Those can then be separate mobs. So you always know where they're at and then you can do some comparison. You run your lambs through the scale. Everyone on pasture east is gaining at 0.5 pounds a day compared to this group over here. What's the difference? Gives you a little bit of an indication. At this point, I'm just gonna escape out of this for a second, and I'll actually just pull you into the software for a second, then we'll come back and show you a couple things that I use just kind of in our own setup. So we talked a little bit about the gear. I'm just on the website here. Again, this is not a shameless plug. This is just the stuff I use. So we're going to go out and we're just going to start with the readers. So, basically it's these two handheld readers are the ones that, I would recommend, quote unquote, or that are going to work with the way I do things. Personally, I prefer this one because it does a bit of a QWERTY keypad where we're doing a lot of data entry, and then I can kind of customize it a little more to what I want. Do do do. Oh, for Pete's sake, I went by it too many times. You kind of see the keypad there. If I want to create a custom group or add notes, I can do that kind of on the fly. Very simple, just a trigger, and your reader's out to end. You do have to be quite close, so you do need that handling system. If you're commercially oriented, there is a simpler one that doesn't have that QWERTY keypad. You preload 3 or 4 things, and it'll bring up everyone or anything that you're gonna want. Again, yeah, it's a little more simplistic for what I need myself as a purebred breeder, but it works quite well. A lot of feedlots will use this cheaper one on the beef cattle side because they don't need all that capacity. There's some other options too, but when you look at the panel readers, this is replacing these things here. I don't think they're practical and cheap unless you're running really big feedlots, and then just the price to you either have to have this expensive controller or there is a more expensive scale head that's got that built into it. But I think it's really overkill and practicality is just not there. Part of the reason why we rely on the handheld is we'll do a lot of stuff with like mothering and linking up offspring, and then our treatments that we're using independent of a scale head. Again, if you just want to weigh or scale lambs and that's the bulk what you want to do, just something simple like this will work. And again, this applies to all systems. They all have similar entry points. This is not just a Gallagher show. Go to the actual scale heads. Oh, come back. So every product is going to have a scale head, which is going to be connected to a load bar. Basically, the scale head is just the interface. This TW3 is the one I use. And again, I want all this data capacity on there, so I got something with a keyboard that I can enter in whatever I want. As long as you keep using the RFID and you're using that, it will give you current gains, overall gains, so you can track how everything's growing, and it will give you a real nice graph, kind of how your flock looks like. You check for uniformity. I then pull that information back in, and I do a few projections on Excel, which I can show you here in a few minutes. But you can also kind of monitor 2 or 3 different other traits that you want to monitor on there as well. So for example, if I want to, without having to go and check under the skirt, I could just say, this animal's a female, this animal's a Rito, this or the birth date, and however that kind of fits in your system, you do a few options. If you want something more data than that, there is an upgrade you can put on this one that is fairly cost effective compared to the Cadillac, which would be this one. This one will basically give you probably half the information you're going to track on it on your scale head. I think it's complete overkill as far as price point, because it does have that panel reader in there, which I would never condone anyone buying it unless you had a very specific need for it, put it that way. And, on the other end, we do have the very simple ones. This will connect to an RFID reader. It'll give a weight. It'll talk back to your cell phone, and then you can bring in the computer system you want. This is probably where most people are going to be, especially entry level. If you've just got a if you've got a feedlot or something like that, you're probably going to want to have that other one if you're finishing out, a couple hundred lambs a year. But this will work just fine. Anyway, again, spend as much or as little as you want, and you can always upgrade it later. TWR1 reader. No, that's kind of everything. And the TW1, it's kind of the in-between. It'll let you do some drafting and some of the other features that these nicer ones do, but it's not going to let you do near as much. And we'll talk about drafting in a minute. And load bars, again, most of these things are fairly universal load bars. I do find that the brands tend to talk better with their own brands. And that's not first-hand experience, that's secondhand. So I'm going to assume they know what they're telling me, even though I don't usually trust anyone's opinion until I see it myself. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But, depending what you want, if you've got a Marwell system, you're probably going to be using this little 500 kilo load bar. Um, if you want to do something more like a combi clamp or some sort of system is going to hold the sheep, yeah, you're going to have to go to one of these more expensive and higher load rating sets. These 5,000s and for these 5,000 kg ones are meant for cattle. So, I wouldn't go spend 4 grand on that. You could weigh all your flock for that with that, as far as I'm concerned. I do like these ones that are wireless, so you aren't tripping over cords. But again, that's probably overkill for sheep. Most guys are going to use some sort of a suspension load cell. I say that I am trying to figure out how to use one of these because I do want to have something a little more mobile and just have a platform. But again, most sheep farmers aren't going to be looking at that, and that's probably just me being liking to weld and spend money and try to figure stuff out more so than anything else. So before we go too much further, so I gave you a little brief introduction of kind of, the equipment and kind of the data. Is there any questions so far before we get too far in the weeds? I don't want to leave anyone behind. I'm
I
not
do.
sure. Oh,
I
go
have
ahead,
a
Holly.
right. So do you have any like desktop, or is this all from the cloud onto your
It
app?
is all from the cloud. So I'll show you that next. So long story short, this is my dashboard. This is just on Google Chrome. Um, wonder if I can go back. Yeah, so I just come in, I've got my account, I pay for password, I log in, boom, Bob's your uncle. What I really like about this was some of the new and again, that's not shameless plug, this is just what I like. I don't even have to connect to like a computer or anything as long as I'm within Wi-Fi. I hit I hit one button on my scale head and the data's already up. Everything syncs automatically. And with the older software that was cloud-based, you had to put a concerted effort into making sure that all your data was the same across all devices. The only little, I wouldn't even call it a glitch, but just where the technology was, and they're making it work until they come out with something more expensive they're going to try to sell me, is you really need to have the mobile app on your phone to make full use of the wand, but you can sync that and then everything's across. You can sync that very easily. So everything's staying up to date much better than the old system. There were some features on the desktop based version that I did like they had some better reports for like forecasting weights, and I'd be able to say, tell me the dates this mob of lambs is going to hit 110 pounds. And it'd forecast out the dates, and I'd say, okay, tell me what everyone's going to weigh on this date. And then it was kind of easier to figure out when things were going out the door. I can still do that. I just have to kind of do it manually right now. I know they are building some stuff, and with this cloud stuff, they are always kind of improving it. And there's like new betas and stuff coming out. They just launched a new like animal history report. So I ran one of those earlier just to play with it, and it showed me every lamb I had in a group, and then it showed me like everything that ever been done with them. So it was like 100 lambs, and I think it had like 800 data points, which I'm not going to need that in a group of lambs, but if I have a small group of replacements, it might be nice to have like 10 or 20 lambs to see their history, or if I want to look at a group of ewes that turn dry, or not dry, but were open, I can print that off and say, okay, she's been dry twice, or oh crap, she's been dry 3 times. I forgot to ship her. Well, that's good because she's probably worth about 600 bucks at this point, size of a steer. Stuff like that. So again, they're always kind of coming out with some things. They are pretty good if there's something custom you want, they'll help you figure it out. And I was complaining a little bit about that report, and they are working on it. And the more complaints they have, they'll try to work on some stuff. And just briefly, I'll kind of show you how this goes. So basically, if you do a weighing or any activity, it's basically a session. So each one of these things, I'll pull up this one that I was doing with the producer. So every lamb that we put through is on here. As you'll see, not everything is done, but I'll pull you out to one of my other ones. Yeah, I'm not Amprolium. Things go wrong on my farm too, guys. But I've got all my EIDs, the date it happened, what their weight was at the time, and it's showing me what their gains were on that date. And as you can see, they don't have their VID, so I use that for my Genovis number, or like that'd be like a farm tag or something. I have to manually put it in. I'll show you kind of how I do that. I better keep moving along or else we're going to be on here till 9 o'clock. I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. And again, I'm getting some specifics, but just remember general concepts of what you want to do. All right, oh, that is not where I want to be or where I want to start. So, one of the things that I do find useful that I would recommend commercial producers is the mothering feature. If you do, as long as you want to keep replacements, if you can match the mother, and then you can scan all the offspring. You're gonna have to put in a CF or a CCIA tag. There is an option you want to do a VID. If you had like just a manual number, you could enter it manually. But again, if you're gonna spend the money on this equipment, like I think I've got about $6,000 worth of RFID equipment right now, just bite the bullet and buy the $2 tag. It's gonna make your life easier. I honestly don't understand how people that have 200 U's can manage without them, but I'm so used to it. I'm not saying I'm questioning anyone's intelligence. I'm just saying I'm not smart enough to do it. And then basically anything that we're putting in there, treatments, like whenever we tail dock, we'll have a processing treatment. We kind of know what's all going with that. And then we pay attention to birth weights. Yeah, again, if you're commercial, it might be worth noting that she's consistently having small lambs, but a lot of that stuff's nutritional, especially in our system. So anyway, we like it because we're comparing genetics and stuff like that and run through some algorithms through Genovis. I don't know if it's super critical on a commercial setting. And just touching briefly on the weight collection, let's say you just want to go with the RFID reader because you want to do some matching. You can enter that manually, and then you can manipulate the data if you want. Joel Hamming in PEI was doing it, and he's running 500 ewe lambs, and I finally convinced him to stop being a cheap Dutchman and go ahead and buy the scale. And it literally cut his time by about 75%. And he said, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? Well, I did. I told you every time I was here helping you how stupid it was. But that said, if you've got 50 to 100 sheep and you're averaging 1.5 to 2 lambs, it's nice to have. It's not critical. As you start getting those more numbers, there is some money involved, but scale does pay. And I do it automatically. It will, as I scan the animal, it's giving me the current average daily gain. So from the last time overall from the first weight, it'll give me some basic statistics such as like the group weight, group average daily gains. And the stuff is all being connected by Bluetooth to my RFID or my scale head. And again, if I want to, let's say everyone in that group that I scanned, I want to draft them out and put a color on them, I could specify on, I want to put everyone that's above 75 pounds or 100 pounds or female. As soon as it comes across, my screen will flash, I'll get an indication, and I can either cut it out with a three-way sorter or put a tag on it to sort it out later, however I want to do it. So it just gives me a little bit of flexibility. Practically, like if you're shipping to an auction, how you'd use this practically is just say, I want to ship everyone over 50 pounds, or let's say 100 pounds. They come through, you cut them out. They come through, you cut them out. And then you've got a list at the end of it, and it's done. Or you're going to wait earlier that week for, let's say, Northumberland. I can actually go back in my computer and I'll say, okay, I've got 20 booked. These are the 20 I want. I can assign them to a draft. And then when they come through, it'll tell me to pick them. It'll indicate the ones I want to pick out, and I can cut them off that way. So again, depending on your production system, what you're doing, again, it's smaller flocks, you might not necessarily need this, but as you grow bigger, and the reality is, we talk about sheep sizes. A large sheep farm in Canada is a hobby farm everywhere else in the world. I was in Australia last year as part of the Next Gen group, and there was a girl there that ran 300 merinos, and that was their hobby. 300 ewes here is some people will raise a family on it. So it's just different. We were on seed stock farms that ran 10,000 head, and that was the small farms, and they were focusing on that stuff. So drafting, I already did talk a little bit about that. I'm just going to show you through something Let me just make sure, see where we are in this. Yeah, I've only got 2 more slides. I got time to do this. All right, so we're just going to do a sample draft here. So first of all, we'll introduce you to filtering. If it wants to load. There we go. So again, this is every animal that's ever crossed my thing because I can't quite see it for the zoom thing on here. Yeah, so this little button here, this is every animal that I've marked as current. And this is now every animal that I've ever had across my scale head, whether it's mine, my father-in-law's, or someone I was helping out. But under current, I think it's going to say about 180 animals, maybe 283. Okay, so if I want to filter, I'm just going to filter up. I'm going to add a couple traits. I want it to be in, this is a specific session, so I'm going to put May 25 grower weights. I add that. Oh, sorry, wrong button. And let's say I want life data. So this is stuff like, sex, the breed, that sort of stuff. And I want to do all my males. Something you get into, like if you guys are weathering and keeping some in, like sex. If you want everyone that, was a male or a female, you'd say I'd want everyone that is not a female. And that'd throw everyone up. Add that to filter, and then let's go for a weight. I could do a live weight, average daily gain, overall daily gain. I'm just going to do an average daily gain, for example, greater than, I work in pounds. This unit will, if you want to do metric and don't want to do English, that's fine. Add to filter. So this is everything that I want. We apply it, and when I ran through this earlier, it should give me a list of like 17 that are going to meet my criteria. Oh, that is why. I haven't told the computer yet all these new lambs are current, so that's why they didn't show up. So here's everyone I have. There's 19 of them. Just select all. We'll not get into the exact details, but this is kind of how you move animals around and manipulate the data, but we're just going to add them to a draft list. Create new. Perennia is going to buy these lambs. So now all these 19 animals I selected are now in a draft list. When it decides to go. So I'll pull it up over here. So now this draft list is here. As long as I upload this list onto my devices, I can sort these animals by the ear tag as they go through. And pretty straightforward. Any questions on that, or? Okay, we'll carry on, then we'll open up to whatever. One other thing I'll show you when I'm on here, like I do pedigrees, and I'll show you just some individual animals and traits. Oh, just one second. I got to fight with my Zoom here. Okay. So again, I'm just going to search for, under the VID, one of my old girls. So this is the VID is the farm tag. So I put my Genovis numbers in there. So CC is Cedar Creek, some of the original girls I got when we started here years ago. And I'm going to bring up Speckles, CC 419. So again, this is just a bit of the information that I kind of take track of. You know, last time we scanned her, she was bred. She's now sitting open right now. I guess she's actually being rebred right at the moment. And then I bring all my Genovis numbers in here. Do I need to? It helps me a little bit. I use most of the stuff on another software in the Genovis software, but I just like keeping track and seeing where everyone's kind of at. We do it in percentiles, and then this is like the raw data, which is basically this number is pulled. Every animal has its own number and every breed has its own range. This is where it's at in the range of its own breed. You know, she's a bit of a bigger girl. And if I want to go into, and she's only ever had one weight because, you know, I bought her before I had this system. And yeah, we were doing a treatment for something. She's probably, honestly, she's probably closer to 250 pounds right now, dry. We were doing some, had some nutritional issues. We were trying to get a handle on it, some threadworm issues in the barn. So if I want to go out to her pedigree, so right now her sire and everything's empty because I bought her in, but she's got 7 progeny that have been listed out here. I know she has a couple more than that haven't got added into this properly yet, but that's fine. There was a bit of going from the old system, new system. There were some data entries, and I'm just going to pull up this one. This is one of her offspring. That one must have been shipped. Oh yeah, that was a male that was shipped. Yeah, that was a male that was shipped. Come back, I say. Gonna go back to you. And again, you can kind of see where her progeny are. If I go into her, she's got some notes. I picked her earlier, and again, she probably shouldn't be here. Her first time through, she's a bad mom. I think I wrote cull in January, but somehow we missed it. And she gave us 3 uniform triplets. We had a lot of ewes that weren't cleaning the sack this go around, or we're having thick. We were having some probably probably toxin issues because we had a lot of tough sacks. So we had a note on that. She'll probably get given another one because, you know, she did have 3 real nice lambs. But anyway, she's kind of on her last chance is the note she's going to get next week. Luckily, she doesn't have that little note that says Alana's pet. And yeah, we'll go into this real quick and I'm going to wrap it up and then I'll hand it off. From current slide.
Jeff, quick question.
Yep.
How much of this are you able to do in the barn versus having to sit at home, for example, on your computer, or when you don't have time, for example? Just wondering, like, is it usable in the moment at the barn? I don't have, for example, a computer in the barn, so just kind of curious. And I guess that question can apply for each of our next speakers as well.
Yeah, no. Okay, so for functions where like that are there is some features on it that do work better in the barn. There's some features that you would have to do in the computer that require some planning. So if, for example, I want to do some drafting based on weights and stuff like that, that'll work very easily in the barn. If I want to do some pedigree tracking stuff, that all happens in the barn. As far as creating draft list, right now, if you want to create a draft list, then go out and do, that can't really be done in the barn. But like for specific animals, but stuff like if I just want to split out everyone that's gaining more than half a pound a day or want to split up my females, I can do that all in the barn right then and there. I just have to basically do it on my hardware. But yeah, and, you know, it's honestly something that has never really bothered me because I was always playing with the dairy, like the dairy softwares. So that's a normal thought process for me. I actually hate doing anything on mobile. I want to sit in my computer, look at my spreadsheets, look at my data, and then go out and do it. Whereas, you know, my buddy Calvin, that's one of the things he likes about UManage is he can do everything right there on his mobile phone. And I just detest the thought of even doing it because I would like to be able to walk away from things every now and then. But that's just me. That makes sense, Beverly, to answer your question right or no?
Yeah, we're looking for, real world perspective. So I appreciate your comments on that, and even back and forth. So no,
Yeah,
thank you.
no worries. Um, and then like the treatments, like, and then there's other stuff like treatment stuff like that. Like, it requires a little bit of preloading in the office, but then you can access, let's say I want to give something a shot of penicillin. I start a new set of treating a bunch for penicillin, or I have one that's ongoing for penicillin treatments. I can go and select that drug, and all the withdrawal times and everything should be there. Um, Again, just speaking of how I do it treatments, if I'm doing vaccination, drugs, or preg scans, I use them there. Again, I use it for sorting quite a bit. Traceability is coming, whether we like it or not. I don't see it as a bad thing. We look at almost every other jurisdiction, and I think we're 10 years behind the time, and it's hard to see it in sheep and cattle because we're still domestic markets, but it does, if we ever evolved into an export market, or there is, things like BSE outbreaks or anything like that, it is going to help us a lot because, no traceability is basically what got us out of the American market during the last BSE crisis.
Quick question in
Yep.
relation to that.
Yes.
Does the Gallagher reporting that you're able to, probably, I suspect you can print something, meet the current, I say current because they're probably going to be adjusted, traceability requirements for transportation, in terms of what you have to have on the transporter? Out of curiosity.
The
And you might not
Canadian
have an
one,
answer.
no, the Canadian one probably doesn't. But I have a suspicion that the New Zealand and Australia versions are probably a lot closer. Because yeah, they've got a whole other suite of programs that do a lot of stuff that we don't, because they also have to look at, like, maintaining again, where they're an export market, they have to deal with a lot of crap we don't have to, thankfully, like, like nitrogen credits, how much fertilizer spreading, and they've got software to track all that. I think they're going to be, if they don't have it in there, they're probably going to be pulling it out. What this would be able to do is you would be able to have a session, these animals were sorted. You could probably add some session notes and then print it off. I don't know if it's going to be the full requirements to what we want. Because right now CCIA is kind of announced, and they've kind of told us the information they wanted, but they haven't really told us what forms they're going to accept. I know there's still some conversation whether or not you have to have an actual physical copy, or whether an electronic copy is adequate. So again, I don't think it's probably 90% the way there, the information you're going to need. As far as I'm concerned, there's probably a few things you're still going to have to put onto it, or have a supplemental sheet on it. Does that make sense or no?
Yes,
Okay.
because you're right, it will be coming sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Well, and we are, putting my government hat on. We are fortunate in that we are going to have like probably a 12-month break-in period whenever they officially launch it. So there will be a 12-month grace period where they're going to work with us and stuff, to get this all through. And then once that's over, we better have learned, is all I'm going to say, because they might not be so gracious. Anyway, I put track users as a group. I forget what I even meant when I put that there. Yeah, I forget what my train of thought was because I put this together here last week. But anyway, if you have this data and treatments and stuff, if you start seeing, like, failed treatments of penicillin or certain drug, you might, be able to bring it up with your vet that you have a concern that you're not seeing, have resistance issues, or you're not using it properly. And again, I really like the withdrawal times. So if I go to ship something that's 120 pounds and I gave it a shot of Resflor, which has about a 65-day withdrawal at 90 pounds, let's call a spade a spade. If it goes to auction and it's being slaughtered provincially, no one's probably ever going to catch it. That doesn't mean you should do it, and there is a chance that it might get caught in a random audit. Where I shipped Northumberland and they're under federal inspection, I really don't want it to get caught. So, and at the end of the day, consumers will only put as much faith in producers as we, allow them to. So anyway, I just like it because it keeps me from making stupid mistakes. Not that I want to do anything maliciously, but you know, we're all human. And the other things I will say about this stuff, you do have to have some degree of Excel competency in this if you want to start playing with other data sets. Like I said, I deal with Genovis. You know, I got to export stuff off for CLRC next week, or not CLRC and CSBA, get them to do stuff. And when I'm projecting weights, I still have to do that manually. I'll show you how to do that real quick, and then I'm going to let someone else talk because, yeah, it's almost 8 o'clock, and I've been going for half an hour now. I'm surprised you didn't cut me off, Katie.
It's all good.
Anyway, this is just a group that I worked out with a gentleman here the other day. I'm gonna start shipping some lambs off Northumberland on a trial base. So long story short, we weighed them on the 28th. This was the live weight. I did put an automatic draft on there. You know, the ones that were heavy were the ones that were ready to go now. We had set it for 120, and we end up just manually putting these ones in. And then, you know, he's got quite a few that are getting pretty close. And then these light ones here, you know, it was kind of neat going back and forth with the producer because we kind of looked at this and, you know, even these guys that are down here at like, you know, 95 pounds and 90 pounds. But I kind of told him point blunt, like, you know, these ones here, this time, the season that we're in right now, the price of lamb is going down. You know, I told him it was up to him because he does, you know, he produces all his own feed, he grows his own grain and stuff. But especially those lighter ones, with the way prices are probably going to go in the next 3 or 4 months, by the time these things actually hit market, he's probably going to get paid the same as if he ships them next week. So he can make whatever judgment call he wants on that. And it's something we don't play with in sheep, but you know, the general rule with cattle is if you've got you've got your weight range, your lower weight range and your higher weight range. If that cow's growing at 2.5 to 3 pounds a day, yeah, you can keep them around and get that higher weight. If they're only growing at 2 pounds a day, get them the heck out the door and get someone else more productive in there. So anyway, I kind of forecast the date off, assuming, you know, an August 5th ship date. Just show you kind of how I did it. So we've got our ship date, subtract our date, which was 7 days, and I just put in a 0.7 pound average daily gain because I didn't have any other background information on these guys. There would be another category here that had your average daily gain or your overall daily gain. Use whichever one of those you think is more representative and then just add it to the live weight. So I came up with these being the projected weights. We're going to circle back with him next week and I'm going to find out how close I actually am. And, you know, we are going to take a serious look here at like what the shipping are. A lot of our lambs go to Ontario over here. And we know there is a pretty substantial, you know, shrinkage on them. So we kind of ran here using Northumberland lambs. It was 2,500 pounds of lambs based on a 42% dress out weight. We figured there was going to be 479 pounds. And basically we kind of worked it out that was theoretically what the load was worth. It could be plus or minus. Probably going to be minus with the heat we're having today. Based on last week's price to come up with an average head. What we're going to kind of do is basically go back and look out at, try to figure out, you know, what was the dollars per live kilogram on the farm is what we're going to kind of break it out to, and then try to see where that kind of pans out, because we know in Ontario, they're probably going to be higher per sold kilogram, but there's quite a bit of shrinkage in there. And, you know, if it's 5 or 6% shrinkage, I have heard as high as 20%, but I think there was some shenanigans and lambs getting put in different people's names, but 10 to 15% is not uncommon. So anyway, it'll be nice to have an actual hard figure on that. And so, excuse me, as opposed to everyone, you know, figuring, because there's, you know, fools that figure and figures that fool. So that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen unless anyone's got any questions on the software or anything else that you want me to deal with real quick.
Okay.
Any general questions? Did I scare you? Overwhelm you? Underwhelm you?
I just wanted to quickly clarify one thing about it, where you had the
Yeah.
the groups and the mobs.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure understood the difference between the two. I think I got the impression the mobs are the mobs are exclusive and the groups are non-exclusive.
Yeah.
Like you could share members between the groups, but the mobs are ones where people can only go, or sheep can only go into one category.
Yes. Yeah. So how I use it myself personally, so like all the lambs that hit the ground in April are on the same mob. Within that, I could have a couple groups, like I could have all the females, all the purebreds, all the crossbreds, and then, I could be able to do that to run some group comparisons within that. If I was just running the whole group as a mob under one management, let's say I've got a bunch of weathers and a bunch of females, and they're all terminals. I could check and see how my weathers and my females were performing, but I can just run overall mob statistics. I know that as a group, they're running, let's say 0.7 pounds per day, which is pretty good. And then I could break it down. Mobs is not usually something we use around here because, just the numbers we're dealing with are quite a bit lower. Like, Australia, New Zealand, even the States, you'll have, mobs of, 1,000 head. And that's how they sell them. They know that this group is growing at this much, and it's based all on averages, right? So I know I'm going to have 500 head go based on the mob performance. I expect them to kind of average out about this, and they go to auction, and it all kind of runs out. We're smaller flocks, it's not as useful until you get into those bigger numbers. But it's the difference between like yeah, it's just an issue of scale and mentality. If that's how you want to do it, that's great. If you want to be more specific and do it, like that's fine too, which is whatever makes sense for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, I think at this point, if there's any more questions, we'll just hold them to the end. Thank you, Jeff. That was awesome. We're gonna keep rolling though, and we will give Holly the floor.
Sorry, that was way longer than 15 minutes.
No
That's
problem.
okay. I'm not much of a talker, so this will be good for me. You want me to just jump in, Katie? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm Holly. As I said, I'm Holly from Dal AC. Back in 2010, when I started here, took over the sheep flock. There was actually no data recording at all here. It was all done on paper. And I remember my very first time kind of going out and trying to figure out who was who, because it really wasn't all that set, who was who and where was this sheep and what it was. I remember my first day, I had it all kind of written down, kind of, just following suit of what was done in the past. And a sheep actually ate my paper. And I remember that. I'm like, what are we doing here? We have to do something a lot better than this. So that's when we went out and we bought the Shearwell from Irona Farms, actually, as our tech guys from Alberta that we work with. And the program is actually called FarmWorks. So we bought a little handheld reader like this, and it actually comes with a desktop, or didn't come with a desktop. It comes with the reader that docks onto your desktop. So it's not very portable except for this reader right here. This reader actually, I believe back in the day, was about $3,000 for the docking station and for the software. The yearly update or the yearly software, and let's have it right here with me, the yearly subscription is $210. The guy you're going to deal with is Ronald, and he's actually really, really good. He's a farmer, as I said, out in Alberta. So he is running his own farm. Sometimes he's not right at the tip of your fingers to, be that accessible, but he's very good at what he does, and he's very helpful when you need him. So Jeff actually talked a lot about the same things that's on my program. I can actually open it up because I don't do this very often, but I'll share my screen. Hang on here. Oh, okay. So yeah, Jeff's program and my program does a lot of the same things, but looking at Jeff's program, I'm kind of in awe. Mine's a lot more archaic than Jeff's is. And I have to admit, it is very UK-ish. So there was a lot of terms that I had to learn. There was, some, as I say, language that I'm just like, what is that? So anyway, so it was a learning curve, and it still is. I can't find effectively the same things that I want to find as if I lived as a Canadian program, but it still is basically has everything that we need. And it's going to be a really repetitive of what Jeff's talked about, but everything that I like to look at, big things are the daily weight gains, my breeding groups. We do scan all of our ewes. So we do, pregnancy, if they're barren or if they're not, or if they're pregnant. And it'll give you breeding groups. break that down in reports so you can print out reports. So it sounds, again, I'm old school. I still like to have, and I have an example. Can you guys still see me? I don't share screens very often. You can still see me. Anyway, I'm very old school. I still like to have a piece of paper and a clipboard. I know that sounds stupid, but I like to go out to the field, and I don't have that nice little, I don't have the app that you can put on your phone with this, but I can print this off on my printer, take it out to the pasture, bring back those ewes that I want in that group. So that's that. Saying that, also there is an Android program or an app that you can use for this, the Shearwell, the FarmWorks, but it only accepts Android, and my personal phone is only an iPhone, so they haven't got to that that Apple iPhone app yet. So they're still working on that. And I mean, I've had an Apple for forever, and I can't dare buy an Android. So, but anyway, if you do have an Android phone, you can put that on your phone and use the app that way. And as I said, it's going to sound really repetitive, but I'm just going to go through. There's, we do collect birth weights. We collect, the number of lambs that ewes has in the lambing. That's quite important to, purebred breeders. We also have the option of fostering ewes and putting that information in there too, so you can plug that into your data. Scrapey genotyping can be plugged into here, and lately I've been putting in my CLRC or my registration number for each purebred animal. So just looking on here, my biggest tab that I use are my animal details. So if I'm at my computer here at my desktop, I just kind of basically open this up. So if I take an older girl here, 1947, she's been around for a while. So I plug all this data into here. And as you can see, my pedigree number is here, which again is a pedigree number, but it relates back to my CLRC. There's no linking up with this program. That's kind of the downfall directly with CLRC, because as I say, it's a very UK program. So it's very, that's where its limits are found. Basically, I can go through here. This location, I don't keep it up to date because I move my ewes around so friggin' much. So I just usually put it on farm at sheep barn. So most of my animals, I don't do a mob. They're either at sheep barn or they're at Wingwat or they're at Brookside. So they're going to be at the DAL AC somewhere. So that's a part that I don't use that often. Also, as I said, the scrapey genotyping is on here, and the pedigree, small pedigree, is on here. Treatments that she's been giving. One thing I do like is lambing history, so I can quickly go on here and see what she has had in the past. Actually, I was looking at a ewe earlier. She's kind of neater to look at. This 1941, she's a Laredo Arcot. So I bring that tab up. I can see in the last note, in 2024, she had quads. In 2022, she had quads. In 2020, I can't see that. 2020, again, she had, oh my eyeballs aren't working. That's 4 again. That's 5. That's 4 again. So quad. So this is a way to kind of manage that. And if the age does, 40, obviously I still have that ram. That's 40 months. And anything else going fast or going back is actually what I get rid of. So if this lamb here, I'm not making much sense right now, but if this ewe lamb here, she only aged out at 4 months, this obviously means that I sold her at 4 months of age. And what else was I going to talk about? I was say Jeff took all my points, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. What else was I going to say? I was going to go over, Beverly was asking about transport documents. So this is, you can do this on that program, transport documents. You can see previous certificates that I've filled out. I don't usually fill out a transport document before I send my animals. We just use the thing we have in the truck, or we use a print off and just kind of fill it out. But as you can see here, the fall sale that we were at last, actually that's 2025, that doesn't make any sense. We'll just say here, it's Maritime Cattle Market, but Atlantic Stockyards, we're going to view that. Oops. And you can see that when we ship them and where it's at, whatever. The only problem on here is I didn't fill out my time the last time that they were fed. That's not on there. But as you can see, if you skip over to the other side, that's what animals were loaded on there, that the withdrawal date was clear and everything like that. I was going to click on something else. Another thing that I like to look at, interrupt me. I like people interrupting me with questions because I tend to, my mind scatters. One report that I do like to look at is weight gain. So if we were to look at weight gains of our sheep or lambs that were just born in the spring, so I'm going to just click off our rams, our ewe lambs, and then we will go back to say February 1st is the start date, and then go say to June 30th. So that's going to give us our average daily gain of the ram lambs and the ewe lambs that were born just in the spring. So you can see here, this is another thing that I found with this program. And I think Ronald told me it's just kind of specifically my program or my computer here at the college. It tends to cut off a little bit of information here. So if I was to spread this back over to an Excel, it would actually lose a little bit of that data on that last column. Just a little bit of, again, a downfall of this program, but it does break it off to the sire that, you know, that those lambs were sired by, and your average daily gains here, the start date, and your start weight and your end weight. So.
Just
Yeah,
quick question, Holly. Is this easy to export to Excel?
you can. Yes, you can. You can just go right over here, and you can sell it. I don't do it that often.
Okay.
That's probably not that one, huh? And then you can go, okay, we'll report. It's probably gonna look ugly. Let's put it on my desktop. Let's put it on as what are we today, July 30th, something. So then we open her up. Let me close. Hang on a second. Jeepers. That's so much stuff on here. And then it will. Again, it's a little bit, so you can just grab that data from your Excel and put it into, plug it into another empty Excel or whatever you want it to do. So, yeah. So I'll admit I don't use that feature very often, but yeah, if Excel is not my strong point, I will 100% say that. Definitely, I need a little bit more work on that. So, yeah, to say, Jeff took the show there. Any other questions? I know that's really, really simple. I know I'm missing to talk about something. Talking about kind of the how, you know, how well is this taking to the barn? Like, how can I just grab this and take it to the barn? Yes, I can. Say if I always take this out if we are weighing lambs or if we're treating animals. I'll take this and you can actually plug in here what I want to do. So say if I'm treating them with a cedar, I can actually go into treatments and I can select the drug that we're using. As Jeff said, you do sometimes have to, it's easier if you do it on your desktop, transfer your data onto your handheld and take it out to the barn. But if I am in a, you know, into a pinch and I forgot to do that, I can add it onto here. But it does work a lot better if you want to plug it onto your port and, like I say, transport your data that way. So that's what I usually do. Yeah, it's just a lot easier than just basically writing it down on paper and then adding it in, you know, plugging into your computer after you get back. And that's another thing. So once I do scan everything, I bring this back and it doesn't have Bluetooth or anything. So there is a little bit of a port that this plugs into. And you set it onto my docking system and you put it there. And then what you're going to do is actually transport your data. You're going to open up FarmWorks and you'll just transport your data and suck it all into your computer. And then it will continually update your software or your information on your software. It is very important, I will say, because it's not cloud-based, to back up your data a lot. I usually back it up. It does automatic backups if you actually close your program. But just like your own computer, your own information at home, continually back it up. So about once a month, I actually have an external hard drive that I actually just back it up to. And because you never know when your computer's going to crash. It has crashed before, or you know, or some outside company takes over all the software and Dell, and you know, your information's gone. It has happened in the past. Yeah, so just it's something to keep in mind. And yeah, it is quite user friendly. The reader is pretty simple to use. I tried to get the students to do it, especially summer students. I try to get them trained onto that. And I've had this, as I said, I've had this reader since about 2011. We bought it back in 2011. And the only thing I had to do was purchase batteries. So as I said, the initial purchase is expensive, but I've had this for 15 years, almost 15 years. I've had to change batteries, which was $150. When you plug it onto the docking system, it does charge. But the battery we did have to purchase. And I did lose my little silicone button somehow. But as I said, after 14 years, that's not too bad. And it's very durable. I have to say I've banged a lot of heads with this thing and onto the scale. But I have to say she can take a little bit of a pounding. Also saying that, we have just a normal scale with loads in the sheep farm. sheep come in, you punch in your data. So when as I said, sheep comes on your scale, it reads, you're going to punch that number, you're going to take her out, put another one in. It's not an automatic download onto your reader. It is the scale head does not talk to a reader. You can purchase that, but right now we don't have that. I know Jeff said he's not a salesperson, but I'm telling Gallagher's looking pretty good right about now. Kind of, yeah.
Holly, is
Yes.
the software is very oriented to the UK. Is the hardware oriented that way as well? Like, did you have to get an adapter for any of the hardware?
No, it was actually quite available online. The one thing that I do struggle with being at Dalhousie, the firewalls and the other things that we have to kind of go through are quite difficult. I just got a computer refresh just last week, and I kind of panicked putting the software on today. But right now my reader is not talking to my computer, but that's just a matter of me getting IT in and downloading that proper link that I have to get that software download. But that's just available online, so it's not. Yeah, being from the UK, mostly the hardware is not that way for sure. For software,
Okay.
so.
The other thing I was wondering is if you could elaborate a little bit on just what is, in terms of those kind of the things where it's not specifically made for our system, where it is a UK based software. What would you say is like kind of the biggest kind of disconnect in terms of from using this software for in a North American or in a Canadian system? I guess what do you see as the biggest challenge as it relates to it being UK based software?
I find a lot of the treatment records, I have to add in, it's not a really big deal, but I have to add in a lot of the treatments and what the withdrawals were. And I know if it was a Canadian software, those withdrawals would already be on there. And it's kind of, I'm not going to say what's the proper word, but it's very wishing when I look into the veterinarian treatments and I go, oh, you're going to treat an animal with medicine, so I'm going to purchase more added medicines. Look at all these medicines that are available for sheep. Not all of them, I'm going to say are available for sheep, but there's so much more available in the UK than we have here in Canada. But I'm saying that's not really a hard thing, but I do have to select it a lot. Some of it's not on there, so then I'll have to write in my withdrawals and everything on there myself. As I say, it's not a huge deal, but it's yeah. The transport documents, it would be nice that if the transport documents actually had exactly what we need on there for them. As I said, the date rested, or the date and time rested, the time fed. And yeah, there is some things that, if you do have, this is not a bad thing, but I didn't go over this. I'm kind of going on to a different topic now. There are other things that you can do with this program. I can put in feeds into this program, and I can, I can track those feeds that I'm feeding those animals. So I technically don't do that because I don't have that information. That's kind of, it's so separated here, I guess. I don't see the grain bill. We don't do a hay bill because, they bring it to, I guess I have it easy in a way. They just bring it to me. I just feed it to them. But that is a nice, good option from this software that you can add in. So I can just go under here. So say if I want to feed my animals, I can feed them here. I can select the date. I can select the who I fed. So you can select a mob of animals. So you can actually select, say if, I don't know, so say this one here, and this one here, I want to feed them. I'd actually mix more feed rations, and you can do that all here. As I said, I don't do that currently just because, I don't know, I don't really have an excuse for it. I don't have the cost for that, but to add that in. But that is something, if you're willing to do that on your own farm, it's easy. It's probably pretty easily done here. So. Yeah, and you can actually keep track of, as you see on here, you can do, dogs are actually on here. AI rams, we actually work some with AI rams, so we can have rams that are actually technically on farm, or rams that are in tank. You can keep track of those. Yeah, and I just find, what else? Yeah. I'm not up to date with my EDBs or my Genovis, but if I was, that would be something else I could put on there.
Thank you very much.
Holly, I did pop it in the Q&A, but I'm not sure if anyone's tracking that on the bottom of the screen. But this being Shearwell, or a program that is run by Shearwell, I'm assuming that it only works with Shearwell tags.
I wouldn't say
That's
so. I can't answer that question because the RFID reader, I'm assuming, will read any RFID tag, but I don't know, Beverly. I apologize. I don't know the answer to that.
All right, you're not the expert.
No, I'm not. I couldn't tell you. It has a chip. I'm assuming it would read it, but I'm not sure if it would be recorded on the software. That's for sure.
Holly, what does the program cost?
The program cost, the startup cost was, I should have got that price earlier, but I did not. When we bought the whole system, it was about, I think it was about $4,000 for the whole thing. And as I said, it's about $210 as a yearly fee for software and for support and everything like that. So, and that, as I said, that price, that was a long time ago. So that price has probably changed quite a bit. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any final questions for Holly?
So Holly, if it crapped the bed tomorrow, would you buy it again?
I'm being recorded, Jeff. No, I've been using this program for a lot more, and it does have so much more potential that I'm not using it with. You know, there's, you know, if you want to sit down and do so much more stuff with it, you could, but it's sitting at a desk that I'm not very good at, that's for sure. But yeah, if that's your thing to do, I could utilize this program a lot better than I am. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Just something I didn't add in mind, just because I brought it up. Like, I did seriously look at switching to YouManage probably about 24 months ago. And because the part that struck me on it was I was going to pay roughly, it would have been a little more expensive, but I did have an appeal to like some of those Canadian specific like management things, and being able to submit automatically Genovis. Where I got caught was basically they told me I'd have to change all my equipment over to Shearwell because it talks a lot better to YouManage. And it didn't seem like that big a deal to them up there, but I had already spent a significant chunk of money. And yeah, I really wasn't comfortable spending that money at that point in time. If everything were to blow up here, oh, let's say in 5 years, I might do some farming out to see whatever. But yeah, I'm not married to the Gallagher software. I do like it and find it quite useful because it's pretty, but there is some spots where, I look at some of this stuff, it's like, geez, it'd be nice if I just had that be able to pop up in my software.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I say, I wish it's my own fault. I need to spend more time on it, but it's, as anybody says, it's hard to find the time sometimes to sit down and do it for sure. Hey, I'm just glad I have all the animals in there, mostly. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Holly.
Welcome.
Okay, we're gonna keep
Stop
rolling. Okay, so last but certainly not least, Emily, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. I will just share my screen here. Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about Excel. I use it for keeping our own sheep records at home. And then I use Excel as a program at work, but for like office administrative kind of stuff. So that's my familiarity with it. I really liked what Jeff said about like scanning tech doesn't compensate for poor record keeping. And I think that like nothing compensates for poor record keeping, right? So I often feel like our records at home get really disorganized between myself and my mom being in the barn and not communicating, or you write something on a scrap of paper and lose it. And so I think no matter what program you have, it doesn't make up for that sort of thing, but work with what we've got. And I just wanted to kind of jump through some pros and cons that I see for Excel. So the first one that comes to mind is it's cheap. I think that it's a really good step between like using a pen and paper in notebooks and moving into one of the cool software programs like Holly and Jeff are using that, have things set up for you and do a lot more and give you lots of reports. So if you have a computer that has Microsoft Office on it, you've probably got Excel already. Even if you don't have that, Excel and Google Sheets are really similar. So you can actually do most of the stuff that I will show you in Excel in Google Sheets if you wanted to do that, and it's free. The big bonus of using Excel over record keeping with a pen and paper is that you can set up your workbook so that it does calculations for you and pulls out data that you need so that you don't have to flip through like 20 pages of chicken scratch and try and do that math later on. It is really adaptable. You can, like Holly said, those programs have so many reports and things included in them, and you might not use them all. You just build what you need in Excel, and that's what's there. And it's searchable. So that's another thing that I really like over using pen and paper, is that if I want to find a lamb tag number and a note I had written about them, I can just use a search function and it automatically pulls it up in like faster than you can blink, rather than trying to, again, search through a notebook. It is kind of portable. So like I said, you can use Google Sheets if you wanted a cloud version. There are also, I think you can pay a subscription and have cloud access for Microsoft programs. So if you wanted to access your Excel from your cell phone or a tablet or a laptop or something, you can take that to the barn with you if you want it. And then super cheap way to do it, but there are RFID tag readers. There may be more meant for like a pet microchip, but you can buy them on Amazon, and they will talk to your computer and scan tags into Excel. So we have one that was like $180, and it doesn't have all the features that one of the wands would, but it does save you from like scratching manure off of your sheep's tag and trying to read the faded numbers and type them in or write them in a notebook. So that's cool. Cons, definitely takes time to build your sheets, because all that you start with is blank columns and rows, and what you put in them is what you get. And same thing, you do the maintenance on it. So if there's mistakes or whatever, you fix them. And then back to those mistakes, you're building the formulas in here. So if you have an error in your math, Excel's still going to try and give you an answer, and it's on you to realize that that answer wasn't what you expected it to be telling you. So I'll just jump in and show you some of what I've used it for. A lot of people, there we go. I think a lot of people think of financial records when they're thinking of Excel, because it's fantastic for that. It's great at crunching numbers. I've been trying to use it for flock management. The most basic thing that you can do in Excel is just creating lists. So that is sort of this section here. I've set up titles across the top for my columns, and then I've recorded my lambs as they're being born. I've recorded who their mothers are, maybe their fathers, birth date, sex, birth weight, notes, any of that kind of thing. I have a lot of cells not filled in here. So like I said, if you don't actually record the information, you can't do anything with it later, but the option's there. Once you do put your data in here, then you can start to build in formulas. So again, these are just like the text that I've typed in, and then this over here is a formula cell. It's going to tell me how many ewes lambed in this dam list. So it counts through. It only counts this one, for example, once. She had twins. She's on the list twice, but tells me that there were 60 ewes total, the number of lambs, lambing rate, pre-weaning death. I just put an X in if the lamb dies, and then I tell Excel to count how many X's are on that list, so I know how many lambs we lost and then what our death percentage was. So you can again set up all these formulas ahead of time, and then you don't have to reset them for each lambing group. You can copy your sheets and just plug in new data, but that is something that it can do for you. And then over here, this is a little bit more formulas, and I just wanted to point it out because I love conditional formatting. So I asked Excel to take all of the values in this column and put them over here, just listing them once. So if you had twins or triplets, she's not supposed to be in there more than once. And then I told it in this column, read through, find this ewe tag over here and tell me how many times she's on the list, so I know how many lambs she had. And then same thing, go find her tag number and tell me if there's any X's. And if there is, this ewe here, she had twins, she lost them both for some reason. And then out of all of these 2 columns, I've used conditional formatting, which is really simple, and it just, in this case, puts the highest number dark green, the lowest number red, and then kind of fades them in between. So what I really wanted to do, our scale is broken and I have no weaning weights at all. But what I did want to do and did do for past groups was get the pounds of lamb weaned per ewe for the group, and then you could also do it per year, because I'm told that's a good metric to track ewe performance. So if I did have weaning weights, then I could get a total pounds weaned by that ewe, and then use my conditional formatting, and then my darkest green animals are the ones that I want to keep my replacement lambs from, maybe. So that was my thoughts with this. So this sheet is for one individual lambing group. Something else I was trying to do is a kind of flock summary list. So this would be, this is just I just pulled this in from a different spreadsheet that I have, but I would have summary sheets for each lambing group that I've had in the past. And then I asked Excel to go through them and read all of the dam columns from those sheets and put them into a great big long list here. A bunch of these ewes are not around anymore, but I kind of wanted their data left in there anyways. And then again, it reads through those other sheets and it puts in the number of lambs that she had for each of those lambing groups, and then totals up the lambs, because I kind of wanted to know what her performance has been kind of through her life. So for example, this one here looks like she's had lots of lambs per the age that she is, and this one's not been as productive probably. A lot of this is, again, I have to take the information with a grain of salt, because for example, this ewe looks like she has had a whole bunch of lambing groups where she didn't produce. Maybe I sold her, or maybe I don't actually have records recorded for her and couldn't put that in there. So I still am kind of guessing sometimes, or trying to weigh out what this actually means. So that was kind of the way that I use it for flock performance or flock record keeping. Just some other stuff that Excel can do, because like it does anything you dream up. So a sample like ration balancing spreadsheet would be something like this. I can put my ingredients in and change some values and prices for them. And then what I really wanted from this was the cost per head per day for feeding the flock. If I change the ingredient that's going in, it'll change some values in here, and it'll change maybe my price, except I think that one was the same. And then I also have some conditional formatting going on again, so that I know if I'm meeting the needs of an animal or not. So it changes as I go. And then inventory is something that I was asked to put together when we did this workshop back in April for the office that I work for. I haven't really used this myself, but it's something that you could do with Excel. So again, this here section would be, you're just tracking what's on farm, whether it's livestock or feed stuffs. Every time that you purchase, if we look here, 5 tons was purchased. Almost all of it was fed out. 5.4 tons more was purchased in, and the prices change, right? So if you add in more feed, I guess before I do this, it gives you a running tally up here. So the value of feed that I have on farm, I have 3.9 tons on farm, and the value is 13.15. When I add in another amount of feed at another price, it should change that up on the top right table there. So you could know what you've got on hand, I guess. Yeah, I'm just gonna run back to my notes and see what I forgot. Yeah, I think like I said, you have to build all of this yourself, and that would definitely be the biggest drawback. But also, I think it's astounding how many resources are out there for Excel and learning to use it. You can find anything if you type it into Google, and there seems to be just a lot of like YouTube videos if you wanted to use those, or chat forums or Microsoft help articles, like all of that stuff. So it's definitely very doable. And again, start with something like making your lists. I hit Control F, and that's a search function. And then I don't know, what tag number do I want? If I type in my tag number, it'll highlight her in the list. And again, if I was say weighing lambs and I wanted to scan them in, I could just, click my cursor in that search window, scan with my reader, it would fill it in there. I'd hit enter, and then it would highlight it on my list, and I can put the weight in the cell next to them. So stuff like that. It can automate things a little bit, and the more you build into it, the more you do. So I don't know if there's any questions. I guess I also wanted to say.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you go first.
So I also wanted to say that for the office that I work for, we run workshops, and we had done one on using Excel for farm record keeping. And if anybody wants the example workbook, which has like templates of all of these spreadsheets, I think Katie has that, and it's got kind of a description of the formulas that were used to build them in there, to help you understand what the sheet is doing and maybe how to customize it for yourself. And you're also more than welcome to have the recording from that webinar too, as well, if anybody's looking to use Excel for themselves.
That would sound very useful
Yeah.
if we could get that information.
You
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
answered my thing too, because I use Excel, but I don't have all the formulas, and that's where my biggest challenge is. Because, geez, I was at the AC many moon ago before Jeff and Holly, and we were just starting to use Excel the way it's used now, and I can put formulas in, but not the way that is. So yeah, I'd love Katie,
Well,
please.
Yeah, I'll send those around, and I'll send the recording too.
Yeah, awesome.
Mhm.
Something I'll just add, like just for discussion, like, the big advantage of this is you can customize it, and it is low entry point. When it comes to like data analysis, even if you're not that great at Excel, it does lend itself well to integrate in other programs. Like, Genovis recently launched like some of their commercial analysis stuff, and they've got different metrics meant for commercial producers. Excel is a great launching point to be able to send them the raw data set, and then they can send you the interpretations, whether it's something you want. What depends what's important to you. Like, do you want the number of number of pounds of lambs weaned? Are you more interested in the number of pounds hitting the ground, the numbers hitting the ground? And you can customize a little bit for your operation. That said, that was a shameless plug for Genovis. I wish more people would go on it. But there is some stuff for commercial, and even if you go on that stuff for a little bit and you get a feel for what you want, yeah, you can go back and build in this. Like, it's pretty simple and straightforward. So just because me and Holly are using these fancy systems, I got a buddy, he uses a Gallagher system, same as I do, but he does all his nutrition work on Excel. And it's a very simple layout, but he's cranking live lambs of, I think the last group was 3 on an 8-month cycle. So like he's averaging like 4.5 lambs a year per ewe. And he's just doing that from Excel for nutrition management. So like, just because it's simple and cheap doesn't mean it's lesser than the stuff we have to pay for. But it's only as good as you are.
Yeah.
I can blame my problems on someone else.
Cool.
Any more questions for Emily? I am just wondering how long you've been using this for.
I have definitely been playing with it for years.
Okay.
I in university, I was like mind blown to know that it could add two numbers together because I had no idea. And yeah, definitely started using it, just making lists though, as somewhere to keep. And I should say, like, we have OMAFA in Ontario, pup prints lambing diaries, and they're wonderful, and we use them in the barn. And like, if you spill liquid over them, it doesn't matter, or trample them with a sheep, who cares, or whatever. And then I put my information into this when I come back into the barn. But you don't have to. When we're sorting lambs or like putting animals through the chute, I just set my laptop on a barrel out next to the chute. And the tag reader, even though it's simple, like I felt like it's a bit of a silly luxury to have something that reads the tag for you. It's incredible how much of a difference that makes. Like, it's like a quarter of the time, and it's so much less stressful on the animal. You don't have to like try and pin them down and read a tag that's hard to get to. And yeah, that's pretty cool.
Are you able to send a link to, I guess what it's called, I guess, if you got it through, you said Amazon, that would be
Yeah.
good
So
information to know as well.
yeah, so we had one quite a while ago, and it was like a $50 one, and then they changed the type of RFID chip that is in the tags. So just like whatever you get, I think is fine, but it has to read HDX tags. HDX chips is the type, and it'll say that in the description on Amazon. But
Awesome.
yeah, I could try and find that. Send it to you, Katie.
Okay, awesome. We've got Donald has his hand up.
Yeah, I don't know why Beverly wants to buy another tagger. We got a Gallagher reader, but I'm just too stupid to figure out how to use it. But anyway,
As am I. Thanks.
the question I have is, when you use your tagger, when you're reading your tags, do you already have a list of, like, these are the ewes that lambed in this group, or these are the lambs we're weighing? Or if you're weighing lambs, it just copies all the tags and then you just write in later, well, that's weaning weight and a certain date, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, so it depends on how you want to use it, because it will, so if I just, like, if I clicked on this cell or any cell in the spreadsheet and I scanned a tag, it would just populate it into that cell. So if I, like, again, if I open up that search window, if the tag number was already in my list and I wanted to scan the tag and then, have it go find that on the list for me, I would click in my search window and scan the tag, and that would do the search using the tag reader. But if I wanted to just make, like, if I was weighing lambs and I just want a list of the tag numbers as they come down the chute, and then I'm going to type the weight in next to them, I would just click the top of my list and read the tag. It would put that tag number in, and it automatically jumps it down to the next cell below. So then I can scan the next tag. Like, you could just scan, if I was shipping lambs and I was going to ship the whole group, I would just keep scanning down the whole chute, and it would just keep populating that column in Excel. If I wanted to put a weight in with it, then I would have to scan it and then type my weight in, scan the next one, type my weight in. It still makes it a lot quicker.
So you're able to link your scanner to your Excel sheet. So
Yep.
the numbers. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. The first one that we had used a cord, and the one that we have now is Bluetooth, and it actually reaches quite a long ways. Like, it'll go to the end of our chute setup from the laptop. Yeah, they're awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Like, again, it only reads the tag, so more limited than what Jeff and Holly have, but a good stepping stone.
Any final questions for Emily, or is there any questions for Jeff or Holly? Okay.
I think this was a good presentation, Katie, and I hope we can do some more stuff like this, and because I think it's good to see what everybody else is using, so everybody can get a little bit of idea of, you know, maybe get some ideas to use on their own farm. Thanks for putting it on, Katie.
Oh, no problem. I actually have, if somebody wanted to leave some feedback, or if you want to see another version with different programs that you could use, I'm going to pop a QR code. Actually, I think Emily, you're still sharing your screen.
Stop sharing.
I'll just share this. So, let me see. Okay, can everyone see this lovely QR code? So if you scan this with your phone, it'll take you to a short survey. There's maybe, I don't know, 8 questions. If you have any feedback or any suggestions for other webinars, if you liked it, if you didn't like it, I'll also send the link to the survey in the email that I will follow up with the recording and sheets from Emily. So with that, if there's no final questions, I think we will call it. Thank you everybody for sticking around. This probably poor planning on my part. I definitely did not give enough time for this, but it was all great. And thank you so much to Emily and Holly and Jeff for sharing everything. That was really good.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Have a good
much.
night, everybody.
Okay, I'm going to stop
Thanks.
recording now. Okay, bye now.
Thanks again.